Good morning, everyone. Josh's severe weather. We've got ourselves a major tornado day expected down south late today into tonight. Lots of storms to talk about. Major storm moving through the central part of the country and tracking up into the Great Lakes in eastern Canada. A winter storm with that, severe weather flooding down south, and even last night, a rare geomagnetic storm which brought northern lights all the way down into Oklahoma and Virginia. Wow, and I slept right through it. I wouldn't have seen it in North Carolina anyway. But I'm looking out the window right now and I see a beautiful pink sunrise. So the Lord is with us here, watching over us every day. And that's a nice reminder. So, anyway, let's talk about who's going to get the bad weather and what we're looking at today. An awful lot on the map, but it looks like it will be a particularly dangerous situation for tornadoes and straight line wind damage as we get towards late in the afternoon into tonight over the Mississippi Delta region. Right now, a moderate risk of severe weather. I do believe that the parameters, if they are met, could be high enough for a high risk, but either way, moderate, high risk, it's going to be a dangerous setup. Strong winds aloft, instability, rotating thunderstorms, wind shear, all of that's going to come into place here for what could be one of our worst days of severe weather of the year. So that's what I'm going to be monitoring for you guys. Farther north, flash flooding over the Mississippi and Ohio River valleys as we've had a lot of rain the last couple of days. That continues tonight into tomorrow. And as this storm tracks into the Great Lakes, we will have a brief period of heavy snowfall tonight. And really even this afternoon, stretching from the Quad Cities on through eastern Wisconsin, upper Michigan, and then tomorrow and tomorrow night over northern New England into parts of eastern Canada. So here is the geomagnetic storm. I was on Twitter this morning and I went to bed early enough last night where I kind of missed all the tweets about it. I try to unplug before bed so I can sleep well. But this is on the Skyline Drive in Virginia last night in the Shenandoah National Park. And wow, check out those pillars. Just an incredible shot. And then, of course, when you get into places like London, UK, I think that's the UK. Oh no, Ontario, London, Ontario, between Toronto and Detroit. Some amazing northern lights on display yesterday. So that is pretty to see. This is not pretty to see unless you're a storm chaser, but a moderate risk of severe weather, which includes strong tornadoes, likely as we get towards the early evening. And that is centered on the Delta region here. So northeast Louisiana, eastern Arkansas, northern and central parts of Mississippi, and even up into the Memphis metropolitan area, all going to be under the gun. Now, this is a 4 out of 5. Is it possible we see a 5? Yes. There are definitely some good arguments for that. I will also explain to you why there are a few arguments against it. So I don't want you all to think that I'm just trying to fearmonger the fear of God into everybody, but as a meteorologist, I'm not going to lie to you guys and hold back. This does look like a dangerous setup no matter what, and a lot of folks are going to be impacted. So I want you all to be prepared and have your plans in place, assuming the worst and hoping for the best. In the moderate risk area, we have over 2 million people. Memphis, Pine Bluff, Monroe, South Haven, Greenville, Mississippi. It gets very close to Jackson, just north and west of you in Jackson, but you are in an enhanced risk. Nonetheless, that will mean dangerous storms are certainly possible. Over 4 million people are in that. Little Rock, Shreveport, Bossier City, both Jacksons, Tennessee, and Mississippi. It even goes very close to Cape Girardeau, Missouri as well. This will be updated here later this morning, and I'll give you guys updates on my page. Slight risk outside of that goes all the way through Nashville, all the way up close to Louisville, Evansville, and back to East Texas. I do think that should extend back to Dallas-Fort Worth. I think we're looking at timing challenges there, but we got about 2 hours from where this video is cut before we switch into this, and that'll be through the Dallas-Fort Worth area. But even getting down close to Baton Rouge and as far south and east as Montgomery, Alabama could be in that slight risk. So regardless, we're going to see about 20 million people that have that risk of severe weather, even more that could have flooding on top of that. Just a very dangerous setup here. And you can see right now, we do have a severe thunderstorm watch from the hill country of Texas up into southern Oklahoma. Warnings just west of Dallas-Fort Worth. Flash flood watch and some warnings from central Oklahoma all the way up into southwestern PA, close to western Maryland. Winter storm watches over northern Michigan and an advisory over eastern Wisconsin. I think this should maybe potentially get upgraded in the Milwaukee area, but we'll have to see about that. High wind watch as well over western New York. Dense fog advisory on the eastern Gulf states. and wind advisories in West Texas, New Mexico. The next storm's moving into the west. I'll talk about that more tomorrow. Let's deal with the main issue at hand today. We do have a moderate risk of flash flooding stretching from the Ouachita Plateau through Little Rock, up through the Boot Heel, Missouri, western Tennessee, right on up to about Louisville and Lexington, Kentucky, and lots of rain coming today. Tomorrow, we still see some heavier rain into the northeast, but the excessive rain chance certainly does decrease. Winter storm severity, though, we are looking at some moderate risk for winter storms that are going to cause travel issues here across northern Illinois, southeastern Wisconsin, up to near the Green Bay region, and a minor risk as well over northern Maine and northern lower Michigan. Out west, the mountains are going to have significant snow once again. Nothing new for you guys here, but even Denver could have somewhat of an impact on the east side of town, including the airport here for winter weather. And actually, I'm going to get to temperatures in a second. I do want to show you guys the live radar from Radar Omega. Here's our front drape from central Texas, right on here with the heavy rain exceeding it to the north. And that is where the excessive rain is occurring, just north of this boundary over north central Arkansas, right on up through Evansville, Louisville, Cincy, all the way over to about Altoona and west of Philadelphia. This part of the front's going to drop south. This part of the storm is going to move northeast, and we're going to have a cleared out warm sector here, and that's going to create a lot of instability. The more sunlight we get, the more instability we have in play, and that can create more damaging wind and more of a risk for tornadoes. As we zoom into the Texas region, you can see the Fort Worth and Dallas area are just to the south of severe weather, which is moving up to the north side of the Metroplex around Flower Mound, Corinth, Denton, all the way up to Collinsville. And some of you will be watching this video and this will be long gone, but if you are plugging in early this morning, just wanted to make you aware of that. There is still a threat for some severe weather across North Texas, maybe southeast Oklahoma this morning, but the threat zone here is going to remain cleared out for a while. No rain this morning, and that is going to certainly help allow the atmosphere to become very unstable, but it's going to take a while, probably not until the very end of the day today before things really get rocking and rolling. This afternoon, we'll likely see it west of the threat zone, so don't be shocked to see watches coming out this morning over East Texas and southwestern parts of Arkansas. Here's the tropical tidbits showing you guys all this rain here over the central part of the country. Big low pressure system deepening to about 985 over Huron here tomorrow around midday. There'll be some front end frozen precipitation in northern New England, maybe even in the central parts of New England, the hills primarily. You see a boundary right here that's actually going to drop down to the North Carolina border this evening and overnight, and then lift back north tomorrow. So there will be some rain tomorrow to start the day over the mid-Atlantic and southeast, but more of a wet afternoon, evening over New England and New York City once again, because I know you guys just don't want to see any more rain. But snow expands into eastern Canada, and this is the beginning of multiple storms that are going to move right through New England, eastern Canada, the upper Midwest, the Rockies. As we head into April, it doesn't necessarily mean we're done with winter storms just yet. You guys can see that track remains very active. And down south, this means a lot of rain and lots of severe weather over the next few weeks. Florida is going to probably escape most of this as that storm tracks north of you. We're going to be looking at an early summer in Florida. The Southwest is going to stay a bit unsettled. California is going to have more storms to deal with here right on into April. And yes, we'll be talking about more rain in the Bay Area once again. All right, so let's take a look at the satellite here. I want to show you all the water vapor, if I can pull that up. And yep, there we go. Oops, had it right here, U.S. water vapor. And this way you guys can see where things are coming from. So here's a huge trough digging down into the Baja of California, right on through Texas. Storms exploding here with the first disturbance. There's going to be another piece of energy that rotates around this trough, and we're going to see winds picking up aloft here this afternoon and tonight. And I'm going to show you that in a little bit, but just a constant feed here of upper and mid-level moisture, keeping things saturated in the atmosphere. And that is why we've got this flood threat across the entire Ohio River Valley, really spanning about 7 or 8 states. You can see the flow is directly over the top of this ridge of high pressure, and there's nothing set to really push it out of the way until we get later into the weekend when this next trough moves into the west. So definitely a dangerous setup for some heavy rainfall. Now, today's highs are going to still be roasting hot down south, 80s and 90s in Texas and Florida, mid 80s all the way up to Raleigh. This should be our hottest day of the year. Upper 80s down in Savannah, Charleston, and Columbia. Somebody could hit 90 in here. But you can see there is a pretty sharp boundary right across the middle of Virginia where it's a lot cooler and cloudier over central and northern Virginia. You got to get north of 64 for that. Tonight, you can see it's a mild night as we still have a tug of war with this boundary right here, but still well into the 60s in Louisiana and 70s in Texas. So all the weather moves east of you, but you don't cool off this time, unlike what we've seen over the last couple of storms. It is going to be cold, though, across the upper Midwest. Fresh snowpack. We're looking at single-digit lows, maybe even a few sub-zero lows, and chilly across New England as well, but that's not unusual for March. Tomorrow is still hot down south. It cools a little bit across this region, only because we have more cloud cover, but our front just doesn't really budge too far south. It's going to be 91 in Orlando tomorrow, maybe even a little bit warmer than that. And even Sunday, still pretty toasty here. So no cool weather for the Gulf Coast states or the Mid-Atlantic region. And even in the Northeast, it's still going to be fairly mild behind this front. So this is what's going to keep us from having to deal with anything but some rain. It is going to start cooling off on Monday, though, across the Northeast, 40s and 50s versus 50s and 60s. And that's pretty common for mid-March if you think about it. But as we get on into Tuesday, cooler temperatures coming into the Northeast. We have clouds, we have a trough, and it's going to be tough to get past 50 degrees in many of these areas. It will cool off as well early next week across the Mid-Atlantic, all the way down into the Carolinas, Atlanta. We're going to see more clouds, and that'll hold temperatures down into the 60s and 70s for everybody except for Central and South Florida, where it will stay pretty toasty. All right, so let's take a look at the HRRR model. Let me zoom this back for you guys. Weatherbell.com. Lots of rain over the Ohio Valley. I don't really need to talk any more about that. It's not really going to let up. It may sag a bit south this afternoon and then retreat back to the north. More likely severe weather down here in northeast Texas and the Arklatex later this morning into the early afternoon. But notice as we get to about 5 o'clock Central Time, still nothing going on in our moderate risk area, but we start to see supercell type storms blowing up near the Mississippi River, and this could be a very dangerous setup here. This is about 7 o'clock Central, so as the sun is setting and as we get dark, we now see that risk for tornadoes increasing, which of course is a bad thing that we don't really want to see. We don't want to see tornadoes anyway, all right? But after dark, obviously it's harder to see these storms, and it's going to be more of a danger to many folks in this area, millions of people. And then we see kind of a more consolidated line that gets rolling, what's called a QLCS, quasi-linear convective system, spreading right through and producing widespread damaging winds, embedded tornadoes over central and eastern Mississippi, northwest Alabama, middle Tennessee, right around midnight. And then things should continue into northwest Georgia, but weaken some by the time we get to the mountains here around 4 or 5 in the morning. Things are going to be starting to fade. And then tomorrow we just see showers and scattered storms over parts of the Mid-Atlantic and Southeast, but maybe some more stronger storms farther south over central and eastern Alabama into central and eastern Georgia and moving into the Carolinas. We'll have to watch this area tomorrow afternoon around mid-afternoon for that severe potential. I don't think it's going to get all the way down into Florida, but we'll have to keep an eye on that. More likely eastern Georgia, central Georgia, and the low country of South Carolina before things kind of move out of here, but we'll still see a few scattered showers and storms into the night. This front's not going anywhere. We're just waiting on impulses aloft to give us the lift to get these storms rocking and rolling. Wow, I'm talking a lot today, but there's a lot to talk about. So I'm going to try and zip through this real quick here. Here's the HRRR. Rain spreads up into Chicago tonight, and that changes over to snow overnight early tomorrow morning. So tomorrow morning is going to be nasty in the Great Lakes region, wrapping up in the afternoon in Chicago, waiting until evening northwest of Detroit, and then overnight when we get to the Huron region, and another system could move into Iowa after that. I'm going to try to stay fast here. I know a lot of y'all are watching from the Northeast. You're just looking at a fairly dry day today and then rain moving in from the Southwest tomorrow morning. Western PA could see a few thunderstorms, frozen precipitation in the hills and mountains going over to rain. And most of our snow tomorrow is going to be across central and northern Ontario into southwestern Quebec and across northern New England tomorrow night. And here are rain totals over the next couple of days, and you can see a lot of orange and red indicating 2 to 4 inches of widespread rain. There'll be heavier amounts embedded in this. This is through Saturday night, and then you see more rain starting to pop up down south on Sunday. So a stormy afternoon here in parts of Alabama, Georgia, Louisiana, Mississippi. Lots of places, though, are going to see more than 3 inches in just a day or two, so that's going to cause flooding concerns. Snow on the northern end, this is a blend of the models. Chicago an inch or two, but north and west maybe up to 6 or 7. Northwestern Michigan, 6 to 8 inches. And then you start seeing higher amounts over northern Maine and into eastern Canada. And these are centimeters in Canada. So we could see over the northern half of New Brunswick, over 20 centimeters, maybe up to 40 on the peninsula here in Quebec, and Montreal, 20 to 30 centimeters of snow predicted. Less when you get back to Ottawa and Ontario, and I'll show you that here. We're looking generally at most of that snow staying well north and west of Ottawa and lighter amounts towards the Ontario shoreline here, but still a significant snowfall. It's going to cause travel issues here Saturday night and Sunday. All right, let's break down the severe weather because that's what's going to have the biggest impact and going to make all the headlines today. Here are the 500 millibar winds. You can see as our trough swings east this afternoon across Texas and Oklahoma, we see strengthening flow aloft out of the southwest. And then at night, some very fast winds aloft, over 100 knots expected here overnight across the Quad State region. And that is going to let up some tomorrow, so we will have a quieter day tomorrow, but tonight is going to be a very nasty night. We also have a lot of storm relative helicity. This is the amount of spin in the lower parts of the atmosphere that allows tornadoes to form. And we see numbers start climbing as we get into this afternoon and evening stretch here right across the Mississippi Delta region. This is going to be about 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock this evening, and this can be almost extreme. If I select this area near Jackson, Mississippi and pull up a sounding, it shows incredible wind shear, south-southeast winds aloft, very quickly turning to south-southwest and strengthening, and the potential for a high-end tornado. It shows at least a possibility of a particularly dangerous situation tornado that's EF4 or greater, and this is almost at the high end here. So could somebody finally see an EF5 tornado? I mean, I really hope not, but the modeling shows that potential, while not great, is there. So this is definitely a dangerous situation that will be evolving pretty quickly, and that continues overnight tonight into Tennessee and Alabama. So a lot of people are going to be potentially impacted by tornado warnings and watches, but somebody in here could have a life-changing tornado, and I really hope that that doesn't happen. I hope that all these forecasts end up way overdone, but I'm only going to share with you what I see and what I've been watching as a meteorologist, and you know, that potential is definitely there. Look at these tornado indices here. Over parts of Mississippi and eastern Louisiana, just incredible here, even all the way up to near Nashville, Tennessee. Now, what is going against the threat for strong tornadoes? You can see dew points this morning over Mississippi, mid and upper 60s, but as we get later into the morning, they actually do drop a little bit here, down closer to 60. That can reduce somewhat of the available moisture in place for strong tornadoes. Now, it's high down here in southwest Mississippi, but it's lower in northern Mississippi. So wherever this gradient sets up may be the setup area for the stronger tornadoes. And it looks like it's going to be here across northwestern and central Mississippi, basically Yazoo County on northward all the way up to about Oxford and Batesville. But things do moisten up, and we see a low-level jet pushing 70-degree dew points right back up into this region. So it may hold things off initially, but I don't think that cap is going to be strong enough to keep things from rocking and rolling here tonight in Mississippi. The other concern here are the low-level winds that do increase here. This is 900 millibars. This is this evening, and winds get very strong, and this is going to produce a lot of available wind energy for damaging downbursts, microbursts, and certainly some tornadoes as this moves through here this evening and then moves east and fades somewhat tomorrow. The temperatures in the mid-Atlantic region are going to cool off today as we have a backdoor front dropping down through the Potomac region. But we are going to spring up way into the 80s here in southern parts of Virginia, 86, 87, maybe even 88, 89 around Raleigh and Fayetteville. But we have a backdoor kind of a pneumonia front pushing us back into the 50s around Norfolk and at the base here of the James River. Richmond starts out in the 70s and drops quickly into the 50s this evening. So it's going to stabilize things here tomorrow morning in this region. And I don't think we're going to see severe weather continuing as we have the cooler sector here tomorrow across the mid-Atlantic region. It does start to warm up a little bit towards the coast, but where the storms are moving through North Carolina, Virginia, the air is going to be a little cooler and more stable before the front comes through. After it comes through, it warms up, but it dries out. So here's kind of your triple point right here, where you have a warm front here, cold front here, and just not really a great setup for severe weather tomorrow, but something we're going to have to keep an eye on, of course, across Maryland and Virginia. Here's Northeast Texas. You can see the weather hitting Dallas here around 9:10 this morning, and then moving through, and then East Texas into the Arklatex will get hit as we get into the mid-afternoon hours. In Arkansas, definitely a severe weather day expected. Lots of rain and embedded thunderstorms, which could be severe this morning over central Arkansas when you get north of 40. But then when you get along and south of 40, we really have to watch out around 4 or 5 o'clock. Even northeast Arkansas around Jonesboro over to Dyersburg, Tennessee, all likely to get hit here this evening between 6 and 9 o'clock before things move on out. In Louisiana, you are definitely going to be under the gun here, especially the northeastern part of the state. You can see supercell storms ramping up here in the 5 to 7 o'clock time frame over northeast Louisiana, even down to east of Alexandria, and then Mississippi likely to get hit this evening. Maybe a second wave comes through and then things will kind of calm down, but we'll still keep an eye on overnight a few cells that could still hold together in southwestern Mississippi. And oh, by the way, tomorrow we could see a few more storms trying to pop up here during the afternoon hours, although that's probably going to end up east of Mississippi. Here's the area that's going to be in greatest concern this afternoon, evening. And you can see nothing going on through about 4 or 5 o'clock, so it may look like it's quiet, but those winds will be ripping. You'll see the sun and fast-moving clouds. Then when we get to about 6 o'clock, things start blowing up very quickly, and really tough to say who's going to get it, but the modeling right now showing Greenville and maybe Vicksburg under the gun at 7 o'clock. This is going to be kind of our peak time frame for strong tornadoes. You can see these individual supercells. 8 o'clock, we're going to see multiple tornado warnings spanning from right along and west of I-55, just basically southwest of Jackson, all the way up to near Oxford, Mississippi. And then after that moves through Tupelo here around 9, 10 o'clock, we have another round coming through. So we could get hit twice in some areas here in north central Mississippi before things move into Alabama. And it could be a rocky night around 1, 2 in the morning, Huntsville down to Birmingham and Tuscaloosa. I don't think we're seeing supercells, but we will have a squall line that could produce damaging winds to this area, maybe an embedded rotating supercell. And then tomorrow, the boundary does fade some, but we still have some storms to keep an eye on in the late morning in central and eastern Alabama, and continuing into the afternoon into Georgia and Florida, and I'll show you all those in a minute. Lots of rain in Kentucky and Tennessee. We knew that was going to be the case, but there will be this damaging line of storms in western Kentucky, western Tennessee around 9, 10 o'clock tonight. Moving through the Nashville area before midnight. Don't be shocked if there's a tornado warning somewhere in the Nashville, Columbia area here right around the middle of the night, so you'll want to be alert for that. That's going to move east and weaken by the time it gets to Knoxville and Chattanooga around 2 or 3 in the morning, and then fall apart when it hits the mountains. Tomorrow should be a lot quieter day across this area as we finally do get to dry out. Now, in the Carolinas, we're quiet today, and Georgia as well. Tonight, we're still pretty quiet, but overnight, it moves into northwestern Georgia. I don't think Atlanta has a huge threat for tornadoes, but there could be severe weather between 5 and 7. And then as we get into tomorrow, we have to watch storms redeveloping between Columbus, Macon, and Statesboro in the mid to late afternoon. These will head into the low country of South Carolina, hitting Charleston late in the day. We could have a few tornado warnings in here, but locally strong winds could be the bigger threat at that point. Farther north, things are going to kind of fade in the Carolinas and Virginia. As I mentioned, the air is more stable. It cools down, but we could have some showers and storms in Raleigh tomorrow morning, Greenville around midday, and then moving off the coast after that. And Florida, most of the weather stays north of you. You're just going to be hot and dry, actually somewhat humid. But the Panhandle, we do have to watch for a few embedded stronger storms tomorrow afternoon between about 4 and 8 o'clock around Tallahassee and Panama City that could impact spring breakers. So, man, I'm sorry I went so long, but there's just so much to talk about. I want everybody to be prepared. I didn't even really get to the Western U.S. just because we need a day to just lick our wounds before the next one. But I really appreciate y'all's time. If you could like and subscribe to my YouTube channel, I very much appreciate that. Share with your friends and be on the lookout for more updates from me throughout the afternoon and especially tonight as severe weather bears down on places under the cover of the darkness. Thank you all so much for your time. I want to give all the glory to God who allows me to do this, who's called me to be a meteorologist. And I did see a comment from one of my viewers yesterday about not being afraid that God is with us. And I totally agree. You have to be prepared, but don't be scared out of your mind here. Psalm 27:1 says, "The Lord is my light and my salvation, so why should I be afraid? The Lord is my fortress, protecting me from danger, so why should I tremble?" Yes, be prepared for the weather, but do put all of your faith in the Lord that he will bless you and take care of you. He's promised that to many of us, and I'm happy to pray for you if you're struggling with that or if you have any other prayer requests. We all go through anxious times. I have a feeling tonight will be one of those down south, but just know that the Lord is there to save you. So please do not do not turn away from him when you need him the most, like many people have often done. So I really appreciate your time. Happy to pray for you all. And I thank you for joining me this morning. Please be safe and God bless you.